In a bunch of management articles that I've read, blogs over the last couple of years, you hear there's more and more discussion in the ever-growing amount of time being wasted in the office and out in the field. And, my thoughts about that is this is not something that's new. And by the way, do you remember when people actually used to come to the office to work? Now, I know there's a lot of, work from home because of COVID and such. As to how long that will last, now that we have a vaccine, don't know. But I think we're going to find people are going to be going back to the work. And whether they work in the office, whether they work from home, or if they're out in the trucks doing their things, time can be wasted. It's really an issue. And the issue, to me, usually becomes something clear about, when I was first a manager. And then I became an owner and now an industry consultant. And it's always this right balance that you have to find between checking in on staff and what amounts to spying on employees. I will confess that while at work, I'm all about work. And that is pretty much what I expect from my own employees when I was there. And that is what I teach customers, clients, to expect from their own employees. That doesn't mean that there is, not a need to have time where we just hang out, chat, share, a laugh. Obviously, if you remember the days when we came together and hung out by a water cooler, for example, or out by our breakfast bar or whatever the things that we had, place to break some bread and socialize. I think those are all still important. To my mind, that coming together is where we break down the barriers, and having a really good room where we meet office and staff and outside people makes us feel like one company. Sometimes you don't have that space, so it's you meeting up at a 7-Eleven or a Circle K or whatever it is, but it's vital, to find out where it's happening. But stealing productive time when it becomes excessive is really much of an issue. Yes, as I said, COVID has changed a lot, and there's no question about that. But I don't know that it's forever. Maybe in the long run, I think you're going to find that there's going to be some balance. Maybe some more work can be done from home and some balance coming in. I don't think it'll be all work from home, and I don't think it'll be all office time, but we will see. But no matter where you are, whether it's, again, at home or at work or in the field as you're on your own in your truck, there still needs to be this accountability. And yes, FaceTime is still important, not just FaceTime or Zoom or any of the other meetings. Now, they are powerful, but they're not all-knowing. And if you've been on any of these meetings, you can tell when people are drifting off. All you have to do is watch. A friend of mine who once worked in large corporate America told me that there was always an art to know how to look like you're really busy. And that was with, piles of paperwork. Now, this is years ago. And today, of course, you can be at your keyboard doing whatever you're doing and just taking forever. And productivity cannot be measured by what appears to be stuff. You really need to know what really is work and what is being just deemed as busy. I know that many techs wake up and they already have figured out how many calls they're going to run today, how much work they're going to do. And people in the office are also really good about figuring out what they think they're going to do and how much they're going to be doing today. Now, that's not always the case. Good management brings out way more because people get attached and feel that passion to do their jobs right. And that's really up to you. But it's only human nature to want to do the least if we're left to our own devices. So who at your company, if unchecked, can't figure out how to make the work expand to the time that they're given? That, of course, is, desired on their time frame and not yours. So none of this makes them bad employees. That's not what I'm saying. It just makes them human. The problem is that this ever-expanding productivity wasting, these can rob you of the profits that you need at your business and those that really benefit you, the owner, and them as employees, and frankly, how you serve your customers are all being affected this way. Time wasting is going to happen both in the office, work from home, or within the field. You can choose to buy software and computer tracking programs that let you see just how much time is being spent where and in which programs. You can limit access on your own digital devices to certain websites, and I encourage you to do all of that. After all, it's your digital devices. Just know that although this worked really great, now, of course, everybody is carrying around their own smartphone. And so their smartphone is loaded up with unlimited data in most cases. So they can find different ways to get around your tracking, if you will. So they can just bypass the system. But there are some really great softwares to find out how much time they're doing. Now you can have cameras all over the place and record everything at the time of the day. To me, it's really great if it's a safety issue. If you want to protect the people that are there and your stuff and protect that, like your warehouse, for example, these are things that you need to do. But be aware that it comes off like spying. And it really comes out as I don't trust you, which is the last thing because I'm watching you. And besides, who's going to watch all this video? There's an issue. And so also you can track the time of field staff with GPS, their cell phones, computer software that they're working on to find out, where their productivity is and where we're at with that. But unchecked and uncommunicated ahead of time and proactively as to what you're doing can cause a lot of us versus them. Now, I see this when I go out and used to do one-to-one consulting. I would have private meetings, which I told the management and ownership I must have so I can get a good feel from a number of staff members to hear what really is going on, not the owner and manager's perspective. And a lot of times I told them, of course, it was never going to be divulged, which is I always adhere to, because I could only buy their trust once. And they were free to share when it was a lot of us and them versus us versus them. And one of these issues is they felt they weren't trusted. They felt they were being spied upon. A lot of these things will come off in a very bad way and exaggerate that thing. I also feel that proactively what you want to do is visual accountability. And so I believe office design done right, which is the way that I've done it now, probably in about 50 buildings. You can reduce these issues with visual accountability. There needs to be down on one level, no ivory tower for where management sits and where they're disconnected from the employees. There needs to be an open floor space with a minimal amount of closed doors and blocked off windows in this open seating plan. And the goal is to have people sitting in the building determined strictly by the organizational chart. The managers must be in close contact with those that they manage and find out what's going on and lending support when necessary. It's not about trying to catch them doing something bad. It's actually about trying to catch them doing something good and make a big deal about it. People actually like it when you pay attention to what they're doing and go out of your way to spend more time complimenting than criticizing. Doing ride-alongs with text, in my opinion, is not optional. It's so helpful in so many ways you won't believe it, but that side-to-side and building the bond encourages people in the field to feel like they're part of a team, which is what your goal is. One of my clients told me a long time ago, he said he had a great way to improve his ride-alongs. He made it a goal when he would go out to let them know that what they were appreciated for and how much he appreciated what they were doing. And he would purposely try to give them a great reputation to live up to, which I think is so great. This, he found, actually got his troops to perform better. And I believe there will be times when encouraging this kind of behavior is only going to be to your benefit. It's also vital that you recognize that employees like to be treated like grown-ups and not kids. I learned this lesson many years ago when I found myself fuming because my guys would load up for a job and then just go up the block where I could see them and they would stop for coffee forever. And this is the beginning of the day and I'm like, what's going on? So finally I just said to them, brought them all together, look, I'm not your dad and I don't want to be your dad. You can stop for coffee and frankly, you can do whatever you want, but you've got to be at that doorstep for that job, whether it's an installer or your first service call as a service tech within 30 minutes of the day, which we agree was, reasonable drive time. So now they were in charge of managing their time accordingly. And all I checked on was whether they called in or whether they arrived on time and things of that nature. Finally, I'm a firm believer that you can't expect what you're unwilling to inspect. That means you have to be amongst the team as management to actually see what is and isn't going on. The good news is that it builds a better team culture done the right way. And that is what separates ordinary shops from great shops.